Hey y'all, this is Travis with Command Your Transition, here to talk to you today about TAPS Day 1. This is the first TAPS course, well, second TAPS course of my career. The first one I took was 7.5 years ago, right when I made 04 back in 2012. If you like what we talk about this evening, please hit a like, hit share, send this out to your community, to your friends. TAPS, the formalized SFL, Soldier for Life TAPS course, is part of that continuum of effort to help veterans command their transition. And it's a needed part, it's an important part, it's a required by law part. It's good, there's still some things to work on, and we're going to talk about both of those right now. There's some things that need to be worked on, there's some things that were great, and hopefully for the next few days, I'm going to talk about this in a day-to-day format. I enjoyed the experience so far. Today, there was two major topics, the My crosswalk, so the Mastering Transition crosswalk, and then the financial planning piece. It's a fire hose. It really is a fire hose. You get your PowerPoints and you get your PDF and your read ahead. We got them last Wednesday, Thursday. I didn't touch them. I'll be honest with you, I didn't look at them at all. Walking in today, I kind of wish I had. There are two pieces we'll talk more about that I really wish I'd taken a look at beforehand. It's a fire hose. It's a 120 psi, straight shot, wide foam nozzle that you're getting a content. And that's probably the fault of the process. When you go to TAPS, it should be more of a practice experience, not a learning experience. You should be able to come in with the work examples of things you want to work on, things you want to get done, and then walk away with some of that valuable advisory feedback to move forward with. So, again, this is Travis with Command Your Transition. Thank you. If you like what we're talking about, hit a like, hit a share when this is done in the next 6 or 7 minutes. Really appreciate it. Got one like. Thank you so much. So let's talk about it, right? Day one, go in, we get started, we do the intro. I'm looking at my page of notes beside me. I've forgotten most of the intro. That's horrible, right? But we got to the My crosswalk, the Mastering Your Transition crosswalk. In the classroom, the Army's done a great job of making these 5 categories or paths of veteran transition. They've got, if you look, they talk about the transitioning specialist, the transitioning generalist, the career switcher, the undecided, and then finally the multi-tracker. And I'm definitely a multi-tracker, right? What I wish I'd seen those 5 before I came into the room. More importantly, I wish that the terminal objective, thank you, the terminal objective would be to get everybody, whoever's in that U pile, the undecided pile, into one of the 4 decided piles. Whether you're tracking multiple paths, whether you're going to be a specialist or generalist when you get out, or whether you're going to be a switcher to a completely different career, whatever that completely different career looks like. So we talked about that for a little bit. We went through the My crosswalk. And the My crosswalk's great, but it's really the opening. It's really a gap analysis. We know how to do a gap analysis, right? We know the ideal state, end state, we know the current state, and we kind of have a sense of what's missing. And I think the hard part is, and you can feel it, people want to know how to fill in what's missing, not know that something is missing. We want to get to the solutions. And it's hard, right? A lot of the class, some of the class within 6 months of transitioning, people like me are within a year to 15 months of transitioning. Others were a little further. I think the furthest out in the class was like 18 to 20 months prior to transitioning. So people are in that bullseye. They're in that left limit, right limit. They're in the target site, and they have to get out. And they want to go from undecided to decided. But a lot of it has to happen with not being in the room. So that's number one. Number two, I really liked the experience today when it got into financial planning. We talked a lot about budgets. If you know about the retirement military calculator, the RMC that the DoD has, that's a great calculator to show compensation between military pay, active duty pay, to civilian pay, and what that change looks like. And hearing people question their worth or determine their worth when they realize their civilian pay equivalent was at the 150, the 180 salary bracket was huge. Now, one thing we as veterans don't do well is we don't do salary negotiation. We just don't. Promotion boards, assignment panels, those are our salary conversations. If you're a right center mass officer, you're far right, you're firewall, you're stonewalled all the way over, you don't get a bonus necessarily. You just get to promote faster. And that's really it. Whereas when you go into that same room and have that conversation about, well, I'm worth 160, so I'm worth 160, it's not something that we're used to doing. It's not something we're used to being as materialistic and open about when it comes to salary. Now, one of the counselors we had some great counselors. One counselor, look, y'all are very honest. Veterans are very honest about everything else. You're honest about how you got hurt. injuries. You're honest about deployments. You're honest about the jobs you did. You're honest about a lot of things that are really protected in terms of Department of Labor classification and questioning. But when it comes to salary, a lot of veterans are very hesitant to have the money conversation instead of all the other stuff conversation, the family conversation, the kids conversation, the community conversation, which was really enlightening. So financial planning, we talked a little bit about salary negotiation. We also talked about not just the RMC calculator, but smart asset, all the other calculators that show you cost of living equivalent of what you have now to where you want to be. And start having that conversation about, are you in the bracket of the skill set? What's your worth? Are you able to communicate that worth and that bracket, that skill set? And it's hard, right? We talked a little bit about resumes. Resumes be more Wednesday, Thursday. But the idea, and we heard it again today, you build the network before you build the resume. And that's something we see in uniform. We know in uniform. We talk a lot about lineages in uniform, how officers and enlisted members can trace their career back following a certain lineage of people ahead of them. Mentors, sponsors, people that held the door open for them, that kind of thing, right? The same thing outside of the uniform. So financial planning was huge, and then insurance was huge today too. Now, granted, when I went through TAPS in 2012, healthcare.gov, mandatory healthcare, that system, that program, that structure did not exist. And it's easy to think that TRICARE is end all be all. But another thing we don't talk about insurance, right? There's a huge gap in the veteran community when it comes to life insurance, when it comes to knowing what kind of policy you need for quality of life adjustments at 75 to 90, right? We don't know about that. We don't have to worry about that. Some of us do the SGLI, we max that out, we do that for a term, and then we move on. There's so many insurance products that are out there, it's very easy to get caught up in a product that's not the best use for us. And more importantly, we also see certain businesses, communities, and markets that look at the veteran community as a profit center to get us into products that aren't necessarily the best products that are out there. So insurance planning was huge, both in terms of health insurance side and just walking through healthcare.gov. I have a whole newfound respect to how it failed in rollout. The idea you can put 300 million people through this one database, one system, and get everyone the right policy, next to impossible, but I respect it. And then the life insurance piece as well. The legacy, the estate planning piece as well, which we covered a lot of the afternoon about. And what I realize is, for the majority of us, we're going to take the TRICARE, $366 a month, or $366 a year. We're going to run with the TRICARE. Thank you for the like. But there's going to be more besides the TRICARE that we need to put in our quiver, right? And we have to talk about what those gaps are. Where I wish SFL TAP came into play. I wish it came into play where you did all that as homework, not the Wednesday before, but a week or two before. And I'm a training guy, right? So I wish there was a sort of facilitated online component where you practice your budget, you practice researching for insurance planning, and then you came into the room, and then you had the 5 insurance providers, you had the PHPs and the first commands and those people in front of you, and you went over plans. I wish you did the budget planning, and then you bring 5 financial counselors in the room, and you go over the gaps and the problems in budget planning, and then you sit there and you start reprogramming your budget while you're there. You bring your family in. Only one veteran today, active duty member, had their spouse with them today. And I would think you need them with you the entire time. So it's a good program. We learned a lot today. But yeah, it's a 120 PSI, wide fog nozzle, fire hose. It was a blast. And not having the foundation of what you wanted to get from the experience, it kind of makes the experience a little more confusing. It's a great shot. It's a great effort. But the effort needs clarity. And more importantly, that clarity is on us to find and provide, right? So that was day one. When I went through this 7.5 years ago, I wrote a 2,000-word piece about social media and marketing that I think I'll put back out again because I deleted a blog, I let it go, and I think that piece is still valid because a lot of us don't talk about social and social media in a way to net that next job, career, or calling after the uniform. So that's going to come later. But for right now, day one was a great day one. Financial planning was good, needs some work. Insurance planning was good, needs a lot of work. There's a lot more to think about in terms of insurance planning. The paths, I like how the Army's got the 5 paths. I wish the objective was to get the undecided, to one of those other 4 supporting or primary paths, right? We'll talk more about this tomorrow. If you like this, please hit a like. Please hit a share. Thank you for your time this evening. It's a Monday. It's a really dreary 40-degree Monday. But tomorrow, day 2, DOL walks in. We'll see what happens. Have a good night.